Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Nontombi Masego, Director of Innovation and Technology Policy and Strategy at the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. I'll be the facilitator for this session this afternoon. Hopefully, we are just going to get a lot in. I've got my esteemed panel that is already sitting on here. What I'm going to do, because you have their names on the program, I'll give them an opportunity to introduce themselves first. Thank you for being here. And then just give us a brief about their organization and how they are using catalytic regulatory system for manufacturing and commercialization. That's the first question that they have to answer, to say, in their space, what is it that they consider catalytic in terms of the regulatory systems that do exist? And then we will move into the conversation. After they've done introductions, I'll open to the house to ask specific questions, so that when we deep dive into the conversation, and at least we have an idea of what the house is really interested in. So, the light is blinding you. Okay, so I think I'll give, I think maybe let me sit down as well, so that this is,
Yes.
okay. I think I'll start. Is that Mr. Ngubo at the end? Yes. Kenya, yeah, as I've said, please introduce yourself, your organization, and also around how the topic affects you in your workspace. Thanks.
Good afternoon. So my name is Zakeni Ngubo from ICA, which is the Innovation and Research Commercialization Agency. So primarily what we do is we facilitate commercialization. So we work with the research institutions as well as academic institutions to, one, identify the IP that is available for commercialization here in South Africa, in Botswana, and in Namibia. We then profile the different IP in terms of the different stages. And then we have then a database of what is available and what is ready for commercialization. And then in the same platform, we work with entrepreneurs, whereby we also profile entrepreneurs operating in different spaces, where we provide them with support to take their innovations and be able to take them through various stages of commercialization, starting from understanding compliance and building systems, to all the way to being able to be financial investment readiness. And then at the center of that, we have partnerships with funders like TIA, SAP Foundation, and others, where we essentially profile different funders at different levels. And then we ensure that we are able to bring in the different ecosystems and essentially close the gap that sits currently when it comes to where innovation is developed and where it needs to be commercialized. And at the same time, look at partnering with the different, ecosystem support systems, which include ESD funds that are available, but also how do you take an innovation from idea phase to product development, all the way to ESD-friendly capital, all the way to get them to the point where they are VC ready and they can actually raise money in the private sector. And that all stems from really being able to translate and transition a concept or an innovation from being that or a product into being a sustainable business ecosystem. And that's either through an entity or through licensing, but essentially we work at facilitating that process. And so, so in terms of the regulatory component, there's been a lot of ways where we have looked at how do we essentially take what is available. But I think for us, the main thing has been that the development of an IP registry, where we've looked at the IP in different institutions and then are able to then profile that into one centralized ecosystem and then make that available for licensing to the different entrepreneurs who are developing similar concepts. But at the same time, it's also been about identifying innovative entrepreneurs who lack the technical capacity that is sitting in academic institutions and research institutions, and say, how do we then get these innovators to be able to go to a CSIR for their development and be able to get the access to the technical capacity, while at the same time ensuring that both the entrepreneurial community as well as the technical capacity meet and they are able to interact. And so that's essentially been our role.
Thank you for that. And then moving right along, Ms. Nosipo.
Good afternoon. My name is Nosipo Boy. I come from the Eastern Cape Department of Economic Development, Environmental Affairs, and Tourism. So in terms of what we do as a department, we are the shareholder of 6 different entities that fall under ourselves. So we have 2 special economic zones, that is the Kucha Special Economic Zone, as well as the East London Industrial Development Zone. We also have AIDC, that is responsible for our automotive sector. Eastern Cape Development Corporation, that is entrusted with dispatching in terms of our role for township and rural development, as well as enterprise development. We also have Eastern Cape Parks and Tourism, and the 2 regulatory parties of it that deals with consumer protection, as well as your Eastern Cape Gambling Board and your Liquor Board. So you'd wonder, why am I on this particular panel? As per the provincial government's provincial economic development strategy, we are entrusted as a department to then ensure that we develop in terms of our key development areas that include your sustainable energy, that also include climate change. There's been a lot of talk about climate change. Within the province, we are currently working on a number of initiatives that deals with renewable energy, and that speaks to your liquefied natural gas, your green hydrogen. We have recently just approved our green hydrogen strategy. We have your wind energy, your solar energy, your battery energy, you name them. The Eastern Cape is at the forefront of renewable energy and sustainable energy. In terms of general manufacturing, I think that's where this particular conference then, summit then speaks to. As the Eastern Cape, we were quite heavy on the automotive sector. But due to the Trump tariffs, you know what they say, when Trump sneezes, we all catch a flu. So we have realized that there's been a number of disinvestments within the auto sector. So we now need to diversify our portfolio to other markets. And most of those markets deals with the indigenous knowledge as well, and how we can then embrace that as a province that is an agricultural province. I think most of our land is designated as agricultural land. How are we then going about doing that? We have an entity called ECRDA, that is the Eastern Cape Rural Development. So in terms of that, we are working at capacitating our farmers in terms of them actually scaling up to get into a point whereby they can commercialize. And I think for the colleagues that are within the farming sector, you would understand and appreciate that even if we have your wool and your mohair market, it's currently a market that is currently monopolized for lack of a better word, by one company that does not even have farms around the Eastern Cape, but they just take produce from our small-scale farmers and pay them, I think, close to nothing. So we're trying to find a way in which we can then ensure that there is a market that we create as a province, or some special vehicle of some sort that we can create. Coming to what we're doing in terms of innovation thereof, through the East London IDZ, we have a testing center that provides testing for commodities. So our small-scale businesses within the sector, they have access to that particular incubation area. We also have those that are being run also by ECDC, and we also dispatch in terms of certain funding instruments that we have. Understanding and appreciating that this particular sector also has a lot of co-ops that work within our communities. There was a question that said, or a comment rather, that said, how do we bridge the gap between government and the private sector? And one of the ways of bridging those gaps is through the availability of those particular co-ops that actually work. So last year we managed to dispatch about...
Sorry to cut you. I just need you to get to the gist of what our discussion is about, where you talk about a legislative framework that is enabling in terms of the work that you do.
Okay. In terms of the legislative framework that we have, we work with a number of entities as well as government departments that assist us in terms of the development of legislation that would then be able to work within this particular space. For example, we work with the likes of your DTIC, the likes of your TIAs. We work with the likes of your Department of Agriculture, DFFE, and. So we work with those, and then we try and include that. We have what we call an LRED fund. So that speaks to Local, Regional, and Economic Development Fund. And we are in direct control of what happens within that particular funding. So what we have done, we have now included in terms of your licensing, in terms of that, in terms of your certification that you need in terms of that, and also in terms of the different trainings that you need in terms of that as well. So that particular funding is available for businesses that are interested to play within that particular space. And that inclusion was done through our review process that we undertook last year. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. That is a mouthful, and I think people in the Eastern Cape from that area will know exactly what is it that you're doing and how they can interface with your work. May I welcome Mr. Seth? Thank you for being with us, and we're just done introductions. I think I can take it to you as well to say, or maybe just give you a minute to breathe. What we are doing, we are just introducing your organization and what, regulatory framework is enabling towards what you are doing. But for now, I'll make you the last speaker. I'll go to Ms. Thembi Keswa to then do her part. Thank you.
Hello. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you, moderator. My name is Thembi Keswa. I introduce myself as an intrapreneur, not an entrepreneur, because I didn't turn out very good in that space. I'm good in the background, I'm good in strategy. My background really is corporate affairs, reputation management. I did my MBA on the role of banks in broadening financial inclusion of SMMEs beyond just access to finance. The findings were quite encouraging, and I didn't understand that the findings were a win-win for everyone, including the banking system or banking sector. So I therefore didn't understand why SMMEs were struggling to get, support for funding, and not only for funding, for access to markets. Over the years, I then built on that work and went into regenerative systems, where I looked at alternative models, looking at regenerative economics, looking at circular economics, behavioral economics. Then I incorporated indigenous knowledge systems, because I was trying to find a model that will, give us some sort of a middle ground between your extractive-based models and, to look at how do we learn from some of the ancient systems like your barter systems that worked very well pre-colonial times. So to accurately diagnose why South Africa faces, industrialization and commercialization and conundrum, we really have got to confront the issues past the regulatory systems and look at the economic architecture blueprint itself, because preliminary findings that I've worked on, they show to a blueprint that our regulatory systems are constrained because your governance is still, tethered to the same extractive blueprint that has not changed since inception, from back when it was, coded for structural exclusion. Therefore, since 1884, 1885, it's coded to reproduce exclusionary outcomes. And we see this in the mathematical equation that Prof. Razigan Maharaj took us through yesterday, where he spoke about the 10% top that owns the means of production, that owns the wealth, and to up to 86%. And that trend is not random to South Africa. It's a global trend, because you see the same trend of 10% to about 85. So it's 86 South Africa and 85 globally. And hence you see the deepening inequality, the deepening poverty, the deepening ecological erosion, because of this disproportionate ratio that in itself, it lends to a skewed ratio that results in disequilibrium. And this disequilibrium is not sustainable, and this is where your governance and your regulatory systems are supposed to be looking at some of these concerns. Now, when you look at research from ecology and structural systems, it argues that exclusionary outcomes that we've seen are not due to lack of resources or lack of capital. Certainly not in South Africa, because SAB has revealed a 1.8 trillion reserves, that the private sector is sitting with. So certainly that signals that there are no lack of resources, and research also shows that the private sector argues that these reserves, the billions, are reserved, waiting to see some improvements in terms of governance from a government point of view. But, research also shows that the very extractive systems are the reasons that, there is social decay through inequality, deepening poverty. So it's almost like a bit of a vicious cycle. And so when you look at, further to research from ecology, it argues that extractive systems are as a result of being misaligned with nature principles of coexistence and universal laws of balance. So therefore, if that is something to be examined, because then that suggests that extractive systems are misaligned with nature itself, and you know, scientific research from the likes of Benoit Mandelbrot argue that human systems and nature systems are self-similar. And this is also supported by our very own Dr. Chabalala, whose research looked into smart grids, where, you know, he found similar findings. And W.E.B. Du Bois speaks about, you know, natural systems and social systems also, you know, interconnected. So really, with the various levels of research showing us that, you know, the extractive systems, or suggesting that the extractive systems are misaligned with how nature works, with universal laws of balance. This is something that I'd like to pose, that from a governance point of view, and with all the wealth that we have in, you know, in this room, as demonstrated in this summit, this is something that I think, as Prof. Maharaj, you know, challenged us yesterday, that, you know, we need to let it sink in, and perhaps for the scientists and the engineers in the room to really examine, you know, the mathematical and scientific formula of the extractive systems against nature's geometric blueprint, you know, which is reciprocal, which is regenerative, and you know, with all the wealth of talent and expertise. I think from a governance point of view, from a regulatory point of view, this is something that, once again, Prof did urge that, you know, let's look at solutions mathematically and scientifically, and it has been established that we've got the resources and the expertise, and yeah, I think I'll leave it at that level.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, you can applaud. I hear somebody applauding. Thank you. And our bonus panelist, Ms. Ntanganedzeni from NIPMO. If I butchered your name.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, my name is Ntanganedzeni Mwanalo. I come from the Department of Science, Technology, TSTI, but at NIPMO, yeah, the department changed names several times, so sometimes I'm not sure. I come from NIPMO, which is the National Intellectual Property Management Office. It's a regulatory body within the DSTI. So, maybe a bit about myself. I'm a scientist lawyer, because if I say I'm a lawyer, then people want to run away. If I say I'm a scientist, then they're not sure. So I did my BAc in microbiology and biochemistry from the University of Venda. Honors at TEF. Yeah, it's before some of you were born, so yeah, then. I then did my master's at Stellenbosch. Then a branch into law. So that's my background. So from the work that I do, we are a regulatory body within Program 2 of the DSTI. So what we look at is, there's a legislation that some of you know, some of you may not know. It's called the Intellectual Property Emanating from Publicly Financed Research and Development Act. It's the IPR Act. So in essence, or the basic is that the government have decided 15 years ago that if they fund universities, right, or institution, let me say institution, because then that includes the 26 public university and the 11 Schedule 1 institution. The recipient of public funds own the intellectual property, the recipient being the university or the science council. Because I think the government have learned from other countries where our legislation is very similar to the Bayh-Dole Act, to say, look, we are policymakers, so whoever come up with an IP that government fund need to own that IP so that we shift the responsibility from government to the institution. They need to then decide what they need to do with that IP that they come up with, which is owning it. But there's then obligations in terms of certain transaction, you need to get NIPMO approval. For example, local assignment of IP. So if you are assigning IP as an institution or Schedule 1 institution, you need NIPMO approval because we want to know, after government have given, for example, University of Venda 2 million, why are they now starting a company and assigning or selling off that IP? Offshore transaction, if you're giving an exclusive license, you need NIPMO approval. If you are assigning the IP completely, offshore company, you need NIPMO approval. If you are giving a royalty-free license, you need NIPMO approval because government is saying, we've put in money, why are you giving it away? But there are also options where, in the early days, people used to just protect IP too early. And then later on, they realized that it doesn't have value, etc. So there's means to actually put that IP to the public. So we work with all the universities and the Schedule 1 institution, which is mostly the science councils. We fund them. So maybe, because during break, I got so many people asking for money. I don't have R&D money, like as NIPMO, but Ank and Andil have got the money for you. We only fund the Office of Technology Transfer. So each and every university have got an OTT. That office, we fund the people who sit in that office. So I think half of them here, they report to us in terms of what is it that they're doing with the IP of the university, etc., etc. So those are the people who report to us. We also give rebate for up to 50% of the protection or prosecution fees that the university spend per year. So we will then rebate the institution. So that is the funding that we have, other than being at arm's length of Veli's office. So we are the spokesperson for the minister as well. So yeah.
Thank you for that explanation. At least now you know what the NIPMO office is about, the office and what legislation are they driving. Mr. Seth, you are the last.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Apologies for being late. I had to run from Terminal B. My name is Seth from Catalytic from Tuni Farms. So we work with DSI. We are appointed as a business accelerator to work with the IKS beneficiaries. And our focus is making sure that beneficiaries understand that IKS is not only about preservation, but we need to move to commercialization. Now, we work closely, obviously, as you know, with the universities, and it's always an interesting relationship to how the IP that universities have, sometimes it moves very slowly to get to the beneficiaries. But more importantly, the beneficiaries themselves, they lack, most of the time, the basic business skills. So it's one thing to have a product, but if you don't understand what it takes to run a business, understanding your costs, understanding your markets, and also understanding if and when you need alternative income streams. IKS as a market, we know products generally, the market is quite immature in our country. Anyone from any traditional background, you will know. Xhosas have got things that our Kokabazazi, our Mkulu, Swanas, Sutus, vendors, Songa, all of us have got those. But how easily accessible is that information? That's where we come in to say, let's take that information, put it as a product that can be moved to market. But that process is a slow one, and it always starts with the entrepreneur. So we focus on the entrepreneur, we drive it hard, basic business principles. And then from there, then we can talk about going to market. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much, and thank you for dovetailing us nicely into the discussion, because one of the things that we want to at least unravel today is in the technology commercialization space, even IK, what are the regulatory limitations that we need to be facing, and start maybe even looking at what are the possible solutions to that. Because I think environments like this give us an opportunity to say, to hear our stakeholders in terms of what is it that is paining them, and maybe offer solutions that we can then incorporate back into our work, situations, and then put them back into our policy space. So that I can make my audience be part of our conversation, I'd like to invite any comments, inputs, or questions at this stage before I go on the planned questions in my panel. Do we have any questions or inputs? Yes, I have one there. Can we have a mic? Where are the guys with the mics? Any other question or input? Okay, we'll take that one. There she is. Did you want to say something, Andy? Okay, you are the second one. It will come back to you. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Patience Mpumbude from the Department of Agriculture. My question is directed to Ntanganedzeni, sorry, I think it's Dr. Mwanalo. Here is a scenario whereby there is an agreement between the funder, which is a government department, to an entity. But in the agreement regarding the IP, it says whatever IP gets to be generated out of that research work will belong to the department. Unless if, it says that. But then NIPMO is protecting the researcher, right? So how is that handled? Because we, from the state, we have the working rights of IP generated data, ownership, and all that, especially if that IP can be useful to improve the lives of South Africans or the public. And then the researcher thereby feels that this is my work and this IP has to be registered under myself. Or you find that there's a commercialization strategy that recognizes that IP developed by the researcher. So there could be a situation whereby this IP is on the path of being registered, but at the same time, me having working rights to say, oh, okay, you got this probiotic from this yeast and all that. Please bring that product because we want to help malnourished children with that probiotics. Just to give some example, how doesn't that create conflict at some point? Because we are all government, but we've got all these conflicting frameworks. Thanks.
Yeah.
The hand there at the back as well, but you can take it to him.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks to the panel members for wonderful presentations. My question is directed at Mr. Ngubo from IRCA. There are transborder species, especially plant species, and the knowledge flows from one country to the other based on their proximities in the SADC area. How do you manage the IP, especially if we're talking about sovereignty of some of the IP, the knowledge attached, even data? How do you fund knowledge that could be sitting in 3 different countries? How practical is that? How do you manage that? Thank you.
Okay, you got that, ne? Thank you. Last one.
Good afternoon and thanks for great presentations. My question is also probably related to just this previous question that was raised. I just need to understand how we deal with IP from indigenous knowledge-based, or from indigenous knowledge. How do we, as researchers, I think researchers, we are quick to get to the level where we think we can have IP and then proceed with that. But what if that is based on indigenous knowledge, which is known within a community, or which is broadly known within the society, that you cannot pinpoint it to one single individual or to just one grouping? How do we get to a level where we commercialize something like that when it's broadly known? Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. I'll give Mr. Ngubo an opportunity, but as you are responding to the question that was asked, can you also maybe even go into practical examples in terms of those limiting regulatory frameworks, and maybe start and bringing solutions or propose solutions to how we can unravel those? Thanks.
Hello? Oh, yes. Okay, so let me just start with the answer. So we primarily work with entrepreneurs and funders, right? So what we primarily push for is that the IP needs to be assigned into the entity. So whether the IP comes from CSIR or an academic institution, there has to be a spin-out or an entrepreneur whose company the IP is licensed to. That IP will have implications not only in South Africa, but also in other countries as well. So we facilitate the piloting or the testing, but also ensuring that that IP is able to, not only the IP, but the product and that company has access to partnerships, but also is able to then explore different partnerships and explore implementing that IP in those 3 different countries, right? And then I think also there's, when it comes to, I think as Obudami has said, the biggest issue and the biggest barrier we find is that the IPRX Act allows, obviously the IP belongs to the university. But the licensing of that IP into either a spin-out or into an entity, that's usually where the barrier is, because there's no standardized framework. And so if you are looking to negotiate for IP in academic institutions, you have to essentially negotiate for that individual IP in that individual institution and for that individual product. And that becomes a process that is determined largely by the bureaucracy, the structures of the institutions, and the policies. And so I find that the policies within the institutions become more the barrier, but also the operational inefficiencies, because you find that there is no standardized agreement or template, but also while we're developing the products, there has never really been a conversation 3 years later on how exactly are we planning to commercialize. Are we developing our own entity to commercialize? Are we doing a spin-out? Are we licensing to you as the innovator or to someone else? Those conversations never happen until a funder is there. And then when that conversation now starts, then it also takes a very long time to be able to actually even have that conversation, and let alone the documentation. So those are usually the biggest barriers. And I think that us as institutions and partners in IKS need to think broadly about IKS, because we're not going to be operating in isolation. We need to think about the policies that sit outside. Are we designing systems internally that enable our innovations and our entrepreneurs to be able to capitalize on BE, for instance? So how much shareholding are we giving them versus what we take? Are we enabling them to capitalize on skills development, on tax incentives around R&D? Are we enabling them to be able to capitalize and be able to penetrate the structures in terms of the pace at which we make decisions, the powers that we give them, and the ones that we give ourselves in terms of board decisions and those kind of systems? So that usually becomes the biggest barrier when you now need to take a concept and then commercialize it. And so I think our systems and our policy needs to reflect what we're trying to do. If the goal is to commercialize, then we need to understand what are the pillars and how is legislation changing in terms of tax incentives, in terms of carbon credits, in terms of BE, in terms of skills development, and how do we ensure that we then design systems that make it easy for private sector and for our entrepreneurs to be able to take these products quickly to market.
Your comment around private sector. Thank you. You can give him a round of applause. Thank you. Yes, because more and more, that is what government is working towards, to make sure that public sector is part of everything that we do to ensure sustainability. Now, Ntaganatseni, you are the one who had many questions. And one of the things, as the lady there was asking about the individual rights and the IK rights, right? I just remember that within the DTIC, we have an IK Act of number 6 of 2019, I think, which then protects IP for communities, intellectual property. How do the two now speak to one another? I think as you respond, how do those two either collaborate or talk to one another or, support one another? Because I think regulatory conflicts sometimes come from aspects of like that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm not a doctor, so yeah. There's just few things. It's an awareness or IP knowledge problem, not necessarily the legislation. And I think being a South African is just difficult. I work at a university for 7 years, right? And every time I went to do IP awareness, I needed to go there with men. Because sometimes I was not sure if I will walk out alive. Because I'm gonna say the university owned the IP, and all the researchers start swearing at me. So the problem is, they say IPR Act is the law of this country. Whether the people like it or not, it's a different discussion, right? I don't like the SARS Act, for example, but I pay. I pay every month. And I see it there on my payslip and I want to cry, But it's not the liking, it's what is law. And this stems from a lot of legislation. And this is then, now I'm no longer a scientist, I'm a lawyer. So, according to the Patents Act, right, if you develop something within the course and scope of employment, your employer own. I'm not even talking now IPR Act, right? Because if I talk IPR Act, then you want to chase me out of this hole. So Patents Act, if you have filed for a patent application, that's what it exactly says. So my colleague at CIPC, they are responsible for that law. So when you chase me, you chase the CIPC people as well. Their Design Act, copyright, trademark, this, that. So it's the laws that people are not aware of. And I think I need to bring this, Nontombi, just for context. I only knew about IP when I was at the University of Stellenbosch. I've done BSc at Univen, honors at University of Limpopo. I went to Stellenbosch. The first meeting, these people were speaking Greek. They talk about Enka yeast. They talk about yeast. They talk about IP, and I thought, oh my goodness, because it was just bizarre. So the thing is, your employer owns, whether through the IPR Act, or through the Patents Act, or through the Design Act, whichever law of IP you want to include. Yes, there's a problem with, now I need to choose my words correctly because we've got a problem as a country. But I want to be political correct because I work for government as well. So, the fact that you don't like or love something, it's immaterial, according to law, right? I hope you guys are listening to the Madlanga Commission. The fact that you bully people at work and you take their coffee machines, it's against the law. The fact that you don't like the IPR Act, it's in materia. There are universities who love the IPR Act. So any day I go there, I get a red carpet, you know. There are universities that they are not doing what they're supposed to do with the money that government give them. You go there, they are hostile. So it depends where I go. So, and that's why when I walk in here already, I got my dear colleagues, they were standing there. And they say, you're gonna get all of us fired. And I agree, because the university report us to the minister, right? Do you know that? Can you believe it? These are the people we give funding to. But they report us to the DG and the minister. I mean, March we don't sleep. We run. I mean, I run for my life when lawyers from other provinces, they send us instruction. So it's a problem. And when tier people get fired, I also get fired at the DSTI because I'm not doing my work. So legislation, we're working on aligning them. It's a process. Universities just need to work with us. I've adopted few. I love the new universities because they know very little. So, you know, they are teachable. They've got teachable spirit. They always talk about teachable spirit. Some big ones, they know too much. Now they take us to the cleaners. So it's a fine line between me not going to another province because I'm scared if I go there. Because then everyone is against you. But if I go to Limpopo, it's home, right? So I tell Univen, you're not working, you guys. You know, then I go to Northwest last week. Then people in other universities say, you don't work. You know, they tell me I don't work. So it depends where I go. I mean, I was at Northwest University, so I was telling Prof. Joe, so I said, yo, the potholes there, even though it's even better. So the potholes are bad, but they are doing great work of hydrogen. It depends how you look at it. I know Univen are doing great work, IKS. I know this is doing that. I know Stellenbosch make good wine because I studied there. So it depends where I go. Then I go somewhere, then I don't know what to do with that university. They don't want to listen at you. So we're working on aligning the legislations. Yeah, I can talk for days. Yeah. Yes. It's also the problem because I study in so many institutions, so like I know half of the people here. But we're doing great as a country. I work for the Innovation Fund. So then we used to give 20,000 for filing a South African patent, right? And everyone who knows that, they know we don't examine patent application in this country. So it was just for filing. Now we have changed, only if you've got a filing in an examination country, because, I mean, 15 years later, we can't give just money for grapes. So from my point of view, we have really progressed, either IKS or patents or design. I can share slides, I don't know, I can give Ang to circulate some of the technologies that have come up from university. And I think the prof there did a very good job from UWC. So I can share those, some of the example of spin-off companies only from university from 2 August 2010. Yeah.
Okay, she deserves a round of applause. And I think, you know, as she's explaining, it gives me an idea that we actually needed an intellectual property session, because there you'll unpack all of these things as you're unpacking them. I'd like to give my other panelists an opportunity. The question that I have for, I'll start with Ms. Tembi on this side. You know, one of the things that I've looked at, and what the South African government has done, as Ntanganatseni is saying, is that we have put institutions in place. We've put funds in place. Your NIPMOs, I mean, NIPMO, TIA, you know, SEDFA is rearranging themselves in terms of really trying to put in programs. So what I wanted to find out from you is that enough? And is that enough? Is that working? And if not, what else do we need to do? Because it's not for the lack of trying as a South African government, and my three panelists can respond to that question.
So we got to ask ourselves, yes, we've got, South Africa is known for the most progressive policies and certainly our constitution. How do we explain the stagnation over 2 decades, our economic stagnation over 2 decades? How do we explain being ranked the most unequal society in the world if these policies are working? And we do know that they are progressive, but I maintain that the engine is misaligned with these policies to be able to make them efficient. The World Bank, for example, the World Bank report on inclusive growth 2025 highlights that even though South Africa accounts for 98% registered businesses, I think I'm repeating this and for a reason, SME creation is only 1/3 compared to global averages. So that is something that is telling us that the policies are in place, but there is something at the core that is not, that is not working well for us. So when you look at, for example, the case, the position of the private sector from a regulatory and governance point of view, we've got to look at how we lobby our governance and regulatory authorities and to be able to harmonize corporate governance with our ancient indigenous, governance. And we also need to get to a level where we harmonize to resolve the tension between redress and transformation with capital interests, from a domineering oligopoly structure that has literally rendered the country an oligopoly itself. So the policies are there, they're working fine. Is the engine the right spec, designed, for purpose? That's another question to have.
So I guess your question is around, are the models that we're putting across the right models for our environment?
Absolutely.
And our structure?
And these models, for example, the UN has released a report in April 2026 declaring traditional capitalism obsolete, basically citing the very reasons of this disparity of your elites who are, owning the means of production and literally, stifling industrialization, stifling commercialization, and have therefore, speaking about models, they have proposed what they call a solidarity and social model that will look at a bottom-up process with intergenerations, with multi-stakeholders, across academia, community, traditional healers, and all of that. And DSTI are already doing a lot in that space. I think the issue of having that common thread, collaboration, intensifying, and being able to have that critical mass, as opposed to the isolated, pockets of excellence. I think there's room to be able to work together tighter to almost effect, some, catalytic, impact, if you will.
Thank you for that. Nozipo, what is your take on that one? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. I think because I work for the provincial government, I know that we work in silos a lot. You would find that TIA is doing this, Department of Small Business is doing this, COCTA is doing this, so-and-so is doing this. So there is no coordinated way of dealing with projects. And you find that most projects now get stuck at pilot stage because there is no coordinated way of dealing with projects. And also, between the government and the private sector, I feel like there is always that perception that the government needs to fight with the private sector or need to police the private sector, and the private sector does not like to be policed because they are running a business, and a business is time sensitive, and in most cases we tend to delay them as government. I think I should really do admit to that. There are things that are within our control. Within the provincial government, we issue your environmental authorizations, for example. Someone would wait for 6 months. Why should someone wait for 6 months if a decision is centralized within a provincial office and everyone is working here? So I think people need to start working together a lot. We speak a lot about triple Ps. And I think with triple Ps, the issue that delay projects a lot is the structuring of those particular triple Ps. Because if you structure a triple P in such a way that you disadvantaging the businesses that are coming from the previously disadvantaged communities, someone would definitely come and say that I'm willing to pay this amount as a rand per square meter, of which that is not realistic. We don't have a benchmark as government. I think you work for the DTIC, you know that when people bid, they bid price per square meter. And you give them that particular business, and then 2 months after the line, after the fact, then they can't meet those financial obligations that they're committed to. So I think we should really take our entrepreneurs on a business, I don't know like how to put it, on a business intensive understanding of the business side of it. You have the product, but you need to understand the business side of it, and that is our role as the business. In terms of funding, there are a lot of pockets of funding. Funding that gets turned away and retained to treasurer most of the time because the applications that we receive are not investment ready. So I think from us as the government side, it's also our role in ensuring that we actually make those applications investment ready. Because it doesn't make sense to have 200 million that is retained to treasury when there are entrepreneurs that actually have products that they want to put within the market. So I think in the bigger scheme of things, there is funding. Is the funding accessible? Is the funding tailor-made to what we want to achieve? Is the funding really about development, or is the funding really about what we want to do in terms of commercialization? And is it really accessible to the market that we want it to be accessible to? Thank you.
Thank you. Seth, her comments will gel very well with the work that you do. And what is your take there?
1, 2, thank you. So there was a question that came from here about how do you commercialize a product that widely available across the country? Business is about solving problems. Whatever you're selling is about what problem are you solving. Let's start there first. Now, as to whether it grows naturally across the whole country or not is a different question. I can make a simple example. I'm going to quote just 2 for each of reference. Honey bush grows generally in the Eastern Cape and a bit of Western Cape, honey bush tea. Tonem is there. They get that tea naturally in the wild. That's a bit difficult. If you want to get the raw material, you need to go to them, they'll give you that. Moringa is different. Moringa grows largely across the whole country, a little bit less in Gauteng because of the cold weather, but Limpopo, Eastern Cape, all the way to Mpumalanga, it grows. Now, if you have a product that requires moringa, you don't need much. Is what you transfer? Is it energy drink? Is it a jam that some of my colleagues are making at the back there with moringa and mixing with marula perhaps? Or like NS is making a marula-based energy drink. So do not be afraid to start a business in the fear of who is a knowledge holder. That part will come when you make enough impact. They will come knocking at your door and say, hello, we are the the people that own that IP. Then you can talk about the sharing of the proceeds from the owners. So don't be scared of that. Now back to the question of readiness of the...
Before you move on, can I just maybe support you in what you are saying, to say intellectual property has value only when it's commercialized. That's the gist of the thing. If it's not on a commercial market, it's not making money, then before then, you know, you really can't even evaluate its value. Thank you.
Okay, now back to business and being ready. Funding, so I've got my colleagues on our side who deal mainly in corporates who say the grants and what government does is bad for business. I'm, having been born in Northwest Klerksdorp, grew up in Eastern Cape, I know that black people, we all did not grow up with a silver spoon in our mouths. So therefore, a grant it gives you a leg up. However, do not ever be too comfortable with free money. Free money is limited. Government will give you a start, but if you treat your business as a business, you'll know that what is my cost of doing what I'm doing, and therefore you'll use that money wisely. And more importantly, guys, compliance. Compliance is not only to apply for tenders. Compliance is important for getting that money that will grow your business, which is the banks. When you are selling and you understand your business model, you can go to anyone to get money from him. You don't need a government to give you funding. Government's got limited money anyway, right? But if you have a product that you have proven works and you're making sales, they can see your revenue, they can see your profits, they will fund you, because banks by nature, that's why they make their money anyway. So use whatever government gives you as a grant, as a start, but quickly move out of that and get yourself compliant so you can get money from anywhere. Equity funding. Yesterday I listened to the kids presenting next door. We had about 17 of them presenting ideas, beautiful ideas. Those are raw ideas, but some of you here already have products, already in business, but if you ask about compliance, you sit on zero, and you wonder why you never get any money from anywhere else, because your compliance is on zero. That's what we're focusing on, to say, run your business like a business, which makes yourself ready for funding, whether it's government, co-funded, or grants, but more importantly, get to a level where you can run on your own. Thank you.
We are getting closer to the closing. I just want to find out from the room, are there urgent inputs? Because now we're looking for inputs, not questions in terms of your situation and how you went around it. I see one hand there. I'll just give the opportunity to that one gentleman, and then I'll come to my panelist for the closing. Oh, there's two. There's another one there. Did it just come up now? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I've been listening from yesterday and even now as it relates to what really is the bottleneck. And from where I'm sitting, it seems everybody knows what the issues are. And it's not only in this forum that is been mentioned. It seems in every forum.
Just put the mic closer.
In every forum that we sit in, there's always a mention of we have these issues that really derail us from moving from where we are to the next level. And a lot of the people that are here are in government, and obviously it seems they are very much aware what the issues are. What prevents all of you to solve these issues that seems to be in existence? Because we can't keep getting into meetings, the same issues are raised, but there are no solutions. While so much money, as we are sitting here, has been spent for all of us to be here, but then we're going to have the next meeting next year, the same issues are going to be mentioned. Then it brings a question, what is really the role of all of those people who are responsible to making decisions that eventually at the end will benefit the people of this country? My point basically is, it seems from when I'm listening, not only today, but yesterday and other meetings, people seem to know what the issues are. Why don't you deal with those issues so that we can get out of where we are and move this country forward? Because we can't keep repeating ourselves like this. In a way, we are failing the people because we are the ones who have the responsibility to make a difference, to make their lives better. For South Africa to just get out of where it is and really play its part in the world. Because there's just so much potential, especially with this sector. And so much can come out of it. And people keep saying we have issues, then you know what the issues are. Then why don't you solve those? Thank you very much.
Loud and clear in terms of the decision and the power to make the decisions and make the changes up to us. Thank you.
Thanks. Mine is more of an advice based on what I saw happening yesterday in one of the sessions where a lot of ideas and brilliant ideas were pitched. And I rather would say, can the very institutions that are working with these youngsters help cultivate them, help them learn to understand certain components of the business world? Because I found it actually disturbing that they came here with the thinking and understanding that they will get assistance, and only to find that even in the languaging that they were using, asking for funding, yet this is more about investment. If they cannot tell the difference between the two, that tells me that, or told me that there's some injustice as well that is done to them, because I'm of the view that the funding that they got to do their R&D up to the formulation of whatever should have taken into account the training or the awareness of what happens in the business world. That would help a lot. Then that would include, of course, the other things like the issue of IP, patenting, and so forth. Thank you.
Can we please give her a round of applause? Thank you. Yeah, I think that is huge from the context of the pitching sessions that we experienced yesterday. Now, I think coming to my panel, we are coming to the close. I'm asking for last comments in terms of how to move forward and maybe a conviction. We've been advised that the decision is up to us. So if you leave here today, what is it that you are going to do differently? Where you'll be seated? I think that's the biggest questions. We want to see change. We want to know that being in this we want to know that being in this investment summit did something to you. There's a change that is imminent. Seth, I'll start with you, and then we can move this way.
So I'm going to answer a question in two forms. So we've got students that came through from different universities. We have entrepreneurs that have been working through various products. So let me start with the easy one, the students. Yes, the students that came through and pitched the ideas, obviously some of them got a bit of funding from their own universities to do the R&D. However, I'm hoping, look, I come from a business though, so I'm a private business owner. So for me, I saw opportunities there. I'm hoping that when I go down and spend some time in Venda, I can spend some of those keys either in Limpopo and University of Venda to hear them more. So I have been invited to go there so I can engage them and understand how to move from concept to business. That's one. So that part has been done. We heard them, we know what they want, and we're going to spend time with them. That's done. Now, move to those that have got products that obviously wanted to know more about the IKS industry in general. For me, it's very simple. If you have a product and you've already done some validation of some sort, sell. It's simple as that. It's a business, guys. Trust me. The whole IKS comes down to one simple thing. It's a product that's in this country as a raw material. All we're doing is commercializing it. Are you with me? So don't overanalyze this whole thing. Yes, there are compliance that you need to adhere to. Don't get me wrong. Don't go poison people here and mixing stuff in your backyard. Comply with the regulation. But at the bottom of it, a very simple thing, sell. Now, that comes in many forms. People post a lot on their Facebook status. Some of them have got products that are selling, but they never post their own products. So selling starts from your own vicinity first. Then when you're able to partner up with people who can assist you to go e-commerce. Are you with me? I can tell you stories about my ladies here from Makonde who we met, and they were despondent and thought that the IKS industry is dead. And we said to them, what's the problem? Okay, so your product is seasonal. Moringa grows certain times of the year, same as marula, but then make enough to sell throughout the year. Over and above that, have alternative income streams. They're planting, now this season, they planted garlic, which they will harvest in a few months' time. That is business. So don't sit here saying you've got one product and then get despondent with not selling it. Sale is about moving and income. So sell whatever else you can sell in between that. So those are my two answers to the two groups that are here, the students and entrepreneurs that want to get involved in the IKS space. Thank you.
I like the product diversification part. Thanks.
So I think for me, I would say for the entrepreneurs who are, coming from the IKS space, I agree completely. Understand the business principles. You are essentially running a business that is supposed to be commercially sustainable. And I think a lot of focus was on the community development. And so a lot of your businesses actually appeared more like NGOs, and it was more of the story and less of the business substance in your presentations. So I think sometimes that can be the barrier, because when you're looking for funding, we need to understand core basic financial principles in order for a person to make a financial decision whether or not to partner or invest in you or bring you into their supply chain. So try to learn those things and then focus on those in your communication and see your business primarily as a business. And then when it comes to our students, right, I think a lot of the time, when you talk about the IP ownership, people, get really angry, as you said. I think what you guys need to understand is that, there is value in having a partner like an institution owning the IP. One, you get the technical expertise to develop it. There are fees that are assigned per annum for you to be able to pay for that patent or license in order to keep things going. So it really does help you to have sort of a big brother that can own that license. And the value of your business is not going to come from the ownership of the license. Yeah. What you need to focus more on is less on the ownership and more on the exclusive license to operate. Because if you can have that, then you are investable. And that is where the conversation should be focused on. As you are building your products and as you're working with your professor and your institution, you need to start having the conversations. Will I get a license? How do I ensure that we start having those conversations, that I get the first right to commercialize this? Now, this is a role that I think we are all going to have to play for the academic institutions as well. I think there are simple things that we can do, because policy in terms of the IPRX Act can only go so far. I think we also have to come into these conversations in good faith to say we've got people innovating products, working with our institutions. Most of them have the capacity to actually commercialize. Some even have funding. So why do we not enable the innovators to automatically get the first right, provided they meet a particular criteria, and clarify what their criteria is for them to commercialize? Because you have a scenario where you've got an entrepreneur, they've been trained, they have secured the funding, but a conversation still needs to happen, and there's no clarity on what is the next steps. And I think that's where the biggest barrier comes in. So if we as institutions can start thinking along those lines to say, we've seen the barriers, we know conversations take long, so how do we standardize processes as much as possible when it comes to creating templates for how do we commercialize, what are the requirements, so that all our students, they know about it from the very beginning and they're clear. And when that time comes, when a funder is available, they don't have to now speak to someone to get permission from the DVC, from a department, but it's a very clear process that you have to have minimum 200,000 rand funding or whatever, or you need to bring in a contract, because entrepreneurs are capable, students are capable, but the problem is that we end up becoming the barriers to that progress. So I think that's where we also need to challenge ourselves beyond the act, because we have a lot of discretion. Part of the reason why some institutions are getting it right is because they are using that discretion in good faith. And that's what we need to focus on. The act, it's going to take a lot, but it's up to really us as the institutions to be able to say, if innovators are coming to us and giving us IP and giving us their intellectual property and partnering with us, then we should also do the same and show up in good faith and develop systems and processes that don't stifle them, that don't limit their ability to go out there and get funding. It's us also within our institutions understanding and ensuring that what is happening at TTO and the policies and the systems there also integrate into our business units. You know, it also integrates into faculties, because those things don't happen in silos. But what you find is that, you know, the innovation center, when you ask what is the IP policy, it's only sitting at ITTO level. And guys at TTO, they don't go to the business unit to learn the skills. And so those are firstly the things that we need to change as an institution to ensure that the capacity that we have internally actually circulates to benefit the students rather than the individual silo faculties or departments. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So we are not building businesses to get grant funding. We are building businesses to make money. Is that the gist of it? Thank you. Nozipo?
Okay, thank you. I think for me, as I was attending this particular summit and also seeing the students actually pitch, it takes me back to why the existence of a government. And one of our goals is speaks to the inclusive economic development, and that speaks to also the creation of jobs. We currently do not have jobs in the country, and we have young people that are saying that I have a product, I have an idea, how can you help me to commercialize this particular idea or this particular product? My takeaway from that is that I think as professionals at times we tend to want to speak a lot of big English. I think we need to stop speaking a lot of big English and start taking care of the needs of those particular entrepreneurs. If someone is saying that I need 500,000 for this, I need $1 million for this, and this is the product that I have, I think Usisi Epaleni is a lawyer. And I think with lawyers, but now a scientist, but with Amagweta, you tell them what you want to achieve, and then they take you through how can you get through the regulatory hurdles or the policy hurdles that are there. So red tape reduction is something that is key. And as we speak about red tape reduction, it's not spoken about in the context of IKS. It's spoken about in the context of other sectors. So I think we need to start making as much noise as possible in the spaces that we occupy about this particular sector, the benefits that we can draw from this particular sector, so that it can stop being viewed as an academic sector. Because for someone that is non-academic, they will be like, oh, product development, you're talking about IP, you're talking about this, you're talking about this, you see? So they don't really see the commercial value to it. So I think for me, the key takeaway thereof is how do we then bridge that particular gap between academia, business, government, as well as the communities to ensure that they do scale up. Thank you so much.
Q. So the quadruple helix needs to be functional. That's the key I take from you, is that all the parts, the units of the system needs to work in cohesion. Thank you. Tembi?
Okay, here we go. Yeah, it's clear that we're not short on talent, energy. I mean, the pitch yesterday was on fire. The energy was electric. And I want to congratulate, all the participants, all the young people. and to really commend DTSI and the partners involved in this project for creating an enabling environment to really move us forward as a country, as Africa. And for me, at the end of the day, I want to leave, I'm drawn to really interrogating the source of why we are still here, you know, after all these efforts, after all the investment summits, after all the interventions. And I really would like to urge for a scientific probe into this current economic coding to understand why are we seeing exclusionary outcomes that are blocking pathways. It has been established. It is not just a theory. And then the harmonization of governance, corporate governance, and the opportunity to bring IKS systems into the discussion. I think that it's timely. Certainly, the UN is calling for sovereign solutions, calling countries to look inward, to look at how they can, look into solutions from, from inward rather than look into external Eurocentric concepts. It is clear that we have got the skill, we've got the talent, we've got the energy, and Dr. Barnard or Burden from CSIR or DTSI this morning spoke about the wealth of indigenous knowledge systems, not just at a product level, but also at a systems and metaphysical, perspective, from a spiritual perspective. So if you could tap into that, I think that would be great. And private sector, we need to find a way to harmonize and work together, because we are one in this world. And we got to find a way to make it work. So the scientific probe for me is close to my heart, and I do hope that we, will look into it at some point. Thank you.
And when I read your conclusion is around evidence-based policy strategies, and also, looking at solutions internally, making sure that we create our own solutions. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Nondom. I think for me, it's not even the science, or it's not even the law, but it's the people. It's us here, we're sitting here. We just have, so we just have a problem as people, not because I'm Venda, I speak Sepedi, I speak Xhosa. So if you have moved around in the country, if you have moved around the country like myself, trying to look for greener pasture, you then realize that people are just people. They're just dealing with a lot, they're go-wishing and all of that. It's not because they're Venda or Sepedi or because they speak Afrikaans. They're just people. So I was not supposed to be here today. My boss was supposed to be here, but life happened to her. So she was told she needed to be at Exco. So she called me to say, you are going to Joburg. I'm like, me, tomorrow, which is the 10th. She says, no, we are on the program, so you're going to Joburg. So I need to choose insubordination and not going to Joburg and live in Pretoria. That's labor law, right? Because I'm a lawyer. So I'm like, okay, I don't have a meeting today. Joburg is here. Okay, I can go. All right, so I'm here. So, but I could have said, no, it's not on my calendar. It's not on my watch. But I'm here because I work, I get paid for the day I'm here to do my work. Because when I walk in here, someone said, but you said you're not coming. Yeah, because I didn't have plans to be here. So it doesn't matter. And I had an opportunity when I was at the university, because I work for a funder, my colleagues at TIA. I work for a regulatory body, which is NIPMO. Then I left Because I always wonder when I was there, what is happening at the university? There are problems here. And indeed, there are problems at the university. So I got there and I just realized university is big. There are people who don't want to hear about IP. There are people who just want to do research and have their students, and you can't tell them about protection. They're going to chase you out of the room. So it's a personality issue. I've seen deals not going forward because big egos, you're not going to agree on the terms of a license agreement. I've seen us being chased by lawyers. I'm a lawyer myself. I did my articles at Han & Han Incorporated. I was there for a year. I know how law firm works. They will chase you. So I am a lawyer, but I'm a scientist lawyer. So I always say that because now my family want me to do divorce. I don't do divorce. You must go to a divorce lawyer. I do IP law. Because then I sit with a problem where they go and drink over the weekend and they call me. I don't do bail stuff. I don't know. So I'm a scientist lawyer, so I know the science that you can take a gene from elsewhere and put it in a yeast, and it works. But I also know the law that, I went to the UK and I could not wait to leave there because I went with 2 men, right? And I was the only female. It's dangerous business traveling with men, eh? Because you're going to be arrested. Yeah, no, but men are dangerous in nature. So we found ourselves in places we were not supposed to go, using the wrong, the wrong train. And the British won't give you food. So, we starved there. We were hungry. So I don't want to go to Europe because I feel they don't want us there. But I want to go to Africa because I don't get to use my SNT. So they'll give me food.
What should people do? So what about people that you want to put across?
About people, I just have a conversation with a student from UJ. So the university people, right? The people at the university or DVC and the OTT, you must teach the 2000s. It's a dangerous business that you come here. So I say, your VC is Paddy. He says, I don't know him. You don't know your VC? Yes, I know Marwara. How? Okay. So you can't have students who are doing honors and masters. They don't know who their VC is. They don't know where the OTT is. So I do my bit. So when I have lunch and breakfast with people, so I ask them, do you know where your OTT is?
So is it about information? I want to bring you to the close.
It's about anything and everything you can think of.
We are not going to go home if we let it continue.
So it's about information. It's about ignorance. It's about tribalism. It's about color, black, white, maroon. It's about it's about people telling me my name is difficult, they're not gonna try it. And I sit there and I think, this is my name, which I struggled with for that matter when I did grade, what is it? Standard A, I didn't do grade 1. And I only learned my name in grade 2 because it's that long. So it's about people and what we're going through. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Can we please give her a round of applause? As I'm busy probing, I'm trying to get the gist of her last comment. All I can tell you is about people. I don't know what about people. So we will take it and we'll take it home. Thank you for being here. And I think on a serious note, thank you for being a very good audience. And a few takeaways that came from our conversation. First one is about, the standardized frameworks. I think we have been, in no uncertain terms, told that the decision-making and the power to make those decisions lies with us. So I think as we go back to our environments, we need to make sure that we're intentional about decisions and about changing the current situation. We must improve our operational framework. understanding the law is very important, because also these legislative pieces of work are out there, but 9 out of 10 times I think we misunderstand what they are trying to achieve. So sometimes it's worth your while to just go into the document, read it, and see where it limits you and where it enables you. And also, we talked a little bit about models. We would like to look at something like solidarity and social models, where everything that we do benefits us. It starts with us and it benefits us. And also, now I'm not seeing my own handwriting. The last one that I can quote is around evidence-based policy making, which I think we have already engaged in, and it's an ongoing endeavor from government as well. With those few words, I'd like to thank my enthusiastic panelists and say thank you for really empowering us with your knowledge and sharing your life with us this afternoon.